Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again today. I am Matt, Client Success Manager here at White House Custom Color, and I'm joined by
Christina.
So today we are going to talk about float frames. Float frames are a very, very popular option here at White House Custom Color. We're going to go into what you can do with them, the different options for them, how to price them, how to sell them, how to deliver them, all that fun stuff. So let's just start by jumping right into use cases and what you could use these for. Like several of our products, this really can be used for most any type of photography, for weddings, for engagements, for families, for seniors, for landscapes, you name it, you can use it for that. The really cool thing about the different float frames and the different options is that, you know, for a senior, a metal or an acrylic float framed, you know, a little bit more modern, a little bit more sleek. For a family, like I'm showing in front right here, having a premium gallery wrap would fit out really well. Weddings would be the same thing, so there's a ton of uses for the float frames. They're a very high-end feel. Again, the beautiful thing, you open the box, they're done, you put them on the wall. You don't have to do any assembly at all.
Matt, I like how you said they can really be used for anything, and you kind of named a few surfaces that you can put in there, like the metal and stuff like that.
Yep.
But what I like about the float frames is that, you know, maybe I love metal, but metal doesn't fit in my home style, but when you add a frame around it, it kind of pulls it together to fit in any home, right? Yep. And then it's kind of like an add-on, like it makes it even that much cooler, the metal print.
Yep, absolutely. It definitely softens the edges of an acrylic or a metal. Yep. You know, and for gallery wraps, which have been a popular item for years and years and years, it's a really nice option, great add-on sale to increase your multiplier, to add on a frame that all you have to do is just click the box and add it to it. So let's go into talking about narrowing down your product, since we mentioned the different surfaces. So I'm actually going to move this out of the way here for just a second. We'll come back and refer to that a little bit later. So in the options of what you can do with float frames, you can do a premium gallery wrap. You can do a metal print, you can do a wood print, a fine art print, but I think it would be best just to show. I think that's going to be the best way to do this. So I'm going to hand off a couple of these to you, Christina. So this is actually going to be a metal print that's float framed in one of our float frame offerings. Now you can do the metal in any of the different surfaces. So we do 5 different surfaces for metal. You can choose any one of those and any one of the float frames as far as options go on that. A lot of times we will show this when we're out on the road. I love how a wood looks in a float frame, so I'm going to hand that off to you. That one really has a good heft to it because the wood prints are heavy anyway. But you can float frame woods. They look amazing in the float frames as well. And then also, what I'm holding now, this is actually a smooth matte fine art print. So you can do any of the smooth matte surfaces. So if you want to do a torchon or a smooth matte or velvet, velvet, whatever you'd like to do, you can do that. And you also can float frame a traditional photo print as well, luster print or a metallic. So that's always an option. And another thing I want to touch on too is that we can do custom sizes. If you don't see the size that you need listed in rows, we can quote and do custom sizes. And again, we've mentioned it a couple times so far in the last few minutes, we can float frame acrylics. That's just something that we need to quote out as well. You're not going to find that in rows. So let's talk a little bit about the options for float frames, and we're going to get into pricing here a little bit. So I'm going to scoot this out of the way here a little bit. And for those of you that have not played around with float frames yet, I would definitely encourage you to do so. So these are going to be 3 of the collections that we offer that I'm just laying out in front here. So you're going to have your, let's just start with the traditional and make sure that that shows on the camera. I feel like I'm on a cooking show right now. So we have your silver, white, gold, and black. Okay, these are going to be a little bit more of your classic collection. Then the other two that we're showing here happen to be my favorite. So this is actually our wood collection. So we have a weathered gray, we have a natural, and we have the walnut, which is beautiful. And then we also have an aged metallic, and I'm actually going to stand these up so the camera can catch the finish of these, because these are really cool looking. They fit in really well with a high school senior. If you're going to float frame metals or acrylics, this finish looks awesome with them. But any of these you can add on to a canvas, to a metal, to an acrylic, to a fine art, to a wood print, whatever you'd like. So these are some of the options as far as float frames goes. If you don't have the samples or the corners, you can jump into Rose and you can order those individually. So let's just say that the gold isn't your taste. You don't have to buy that one. You can get the black, white, or silver and buy them individually. By far the best way to be able to sell these to clients is to have the options available in your studio. If you don't have a studio, put together a little case to take with you. So you've got your favorite float frames. I would not recommend laying out 15 float frames in front of people and saying choose. It's always best to narrow it down to your favorites and then give people your opinion. To say, like, this is if it was me, that's a very powerful statement, this is what I would do. I
mean, people ask us that all day long too, right? And we tell them our personal favorites and what looks good on the wall.
And my personal favorites are what we have out in front here right now. I love these. I think that the wood collection is just, it's so rich. It's a little bit mid-century. They're all very clean line. You cannot miss with any of those.
Agreed.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about pricing. So you've got a very custom, very high-end, a lot of bang for your buck product here with these. So, and again, when we're talking about the end product, these are coming out of the box ready to deliver, which is amazing. You know, coming from the old school days where you get the print and you get the frame and you have to put them all together. We didn't even dream about float frames at that point, because how in the world did you put them together? So that all gets done here. But what I'm actually going to do here now is price out this exact piece. Okay, so this is a 16 by 24. It's going to be a premium gallery wrap. This one has a matte laminate on it. It is a wood walnut, and then it has the paper backing and the wire hanger for hanging on the back. Okay.
And Matt, when you say price out, you're talking like what someone should be selling this for at the retail price, right?
Yep, exactly. I'll show you what the cost is through White House, and then we'll talk about the multipliers and how you should be pricing this, in my humble opinion. Okay, so I'm going to hand that over to you. Okay, so if we have the top-down camera here, this is a little form that we have been talking about with clients for quite some time. When we used to be able to travel back in the good old days, hopefully we'll be going back to that soon. We would do meetings with people and talk about pricing, and this is one of the forms that we use. So it's very important when you're pricing out your products that you're not just looking at, okay, well, that only cost me $227. If I sell it for $327, I'm making $100. That's not how it works. Chances are you're probably going backwards $200 if you do that. Okay, so step one, your fixed costs. What does that actually cost you? So that exact product that I was just holding up that Christina set down on the floor is $227.50 through WHCC. I always like to do a color correction on my files. It's just for that extra little bump on my files. I don't think that the color correction hurts at all, so that's $1. So my total out the door is $228.50. But when you're thinking about how to price, don't just take for granted that all the other things that you're doing in that process are just free. So how long does it take to import from that session? How long did it take you to call that session? How long does it take you to retouch or edit, to order, to package, to deliver, all those things? So I consider that to get from point A to point B with that particular product, I have 43 minutes invested in that.
Yeah, some might have other stuff, right? Like if they send it out to a retoucher, or if they have someone helping to do something, they should account for their minutes too, right?
Absolutely.
Like if you're having someone help you?
Yep, for sure. And some of those things you could even figure into your fixed cost, because that's going to attach to every file that you have. Yep. And a lot of times when I'm talking to photographers, when you say how much would you love to make, a lot of times you hear, I would love to make $100,000. I'd love to make 6 figures. That seems to really be the goal for people. So I put in $100,000. So basically, if you figure out your salary to make $100,000 based on 50 weeks, counting a 2-week vacation, 40 hours a week, to 60 minutes a day, or 60 minutes an hour, sorry, you're going to end up with 83 cents per minute that you need to account for all those things that I just listed off. All right, so if you take 83 cents a minute at 43 minutes, you're going to come up with $35.69 for that time. That's what my time was worth there. So $35.69 plus $228.50 equals $264.19. Professional Photographers of America recommend a markup times 4 on that. So if you take $264.19 times 4, that exact print that we had up here, PPA recommends that you should charge, if you want to make $100,000 a year, $1,056.76. And I think that is very, very close to where you should be on that. Now, if you are looking at this and your eyes are rolling back in your head and you're just not a numbers person, it's hard to digest this, you can always do something that's a little bit more simple as well. And Jen and Vicki Toffer have a wonderful way of pricing their wall portraits.
Yeah.
Not the small ones, but the big ones. So I'm going to talk about a multiplier of 2, a multiplier of 3. Now, I'm not talking about a multiplier of what you're paying. I'm talking about a multiplier of the size. Okay?
Just to be more simple, you're saying so they would take the size 16 by 20.
Yep, 16. So if you're going to take a 16 by 20, you take 16 times 20, you're going to end up with 320. Multiplier of 2 would get you to $640. If you frame it, they use a multiplier of 3. Okay.
Because it's higher end, it's like a step up, right? Like most people would put this in the higher end category.
Correct, yep. So on their multiplier of 3 for a 1620, they're going to be just a shade under $1,000. So if you think about your cost of sale here and really breaking it down and compared to that multiplier of 3 based on size, they end up really close. So that is a good cheat sheet, especially if you're in a sales presentation and somebody says, I want to have an 18 by 48 for my wall. Well, okay, well, you have no price for that. Nobody in the world does. So if you take that 18 times 48, you use your multiplier, you could spit a number out pretty quickly.
Matt, what do you say to the people that like, right, $1,000, or right, we were up a little more than 1,000 for this print. They would look at you like they're like, no way could I do that. I could never do that, right?
Okay.
What do you say to them?
Oh, I love those conversations. You know I do. I always say that sales starts between your ears. And if you are convinced that this product is worth that and your photography is worth that, you can sell them all day long. You will sell what you love. If you love the frame, you love the product, you have confidence in what you do, you say it, and you project that, and then you stop talking, that is the way to sell, period, right there. And we talk a lot about sales. There's several of the YouTube videos that are dedicated to sales and how to use the iPad and the Studio app. So if you are interested, definitely hit the follow along button for our YouTube page or the subscribe button, because there's a ton of education on there. And I love doing those discussions. If you want to talk more in depth about that, you certainly can set up an appointment through our customer service team. Vicki Toffer actually helps with design and sales on there. So you can actually book 30 minutes with a CS rep or with Vicki and have that dedicated time to talk about product. And maybe you just need that little push from the back to be able to sell like that. So,
And Matt, like that $1,000, we have people who sell products for more than that, right? And people do less than that, right? So I do think it's a good middle thing to strive for, right?
Absolutely. You know, when you're goal setting, my good friend and mentor always says, if you don't have a goal, you're always at your goal. So you have to set a goal and a way to get there. Maybe, you know, if you're only charging $400 for this right now, to go to $1,000 overnight probably isn't the best business plan in the world, but to have a goal of that and to say, okay, within the next 18 months, I'm going to raise my prices to X, and then I'm going to stay on a steady schedule of a 5% increase every year or 10% until I get to the place where I really need to be. That way you don't send your clients into shock. We don't recommend that. So as far as selling goes, there's a number of different ways to sell these once you have your pricing done. Again, I will say it, I've said it, I think on every one of these that we've done.
I guess selling multiples?
Well, that's one of them. Selling multiples, and you have to show what you want to sell. If you do not have the product in front of you to put in front of the clients, you're not going to sell it. You can't just hand them an imaginary thing and pretend to tell them how it is. They're just not going to get it.
Right.
And especially if you're going to charge $1,000 for a 1624, you have to have the tangible item to put there.
Show the quality of it.
Yep, exactly. And if you don't have a studio space, that's not the end of the world. You can order smaller prints. You can take them with you. You can put a nice little case together that highlights maybe your favorite 3 products. You don't have to take 40 things into a sales presentation. You know that we have a huge catalog of things that we can produce here. But again, you don't want to make your clients freeze by trying to make them choose from 80 different things. To have 3 things that you focus on, you feature, that's a wonderful place to start. Yep, exactly. And always think, whatever you put on the wall, you want it to be your Whopper, because chances are somebody's going to look at that and they're going to say, what's the next size down? So if you have a 24 by 30 on your wall, you're probably going to sell a heck of a lot of 20 by 30s or 1624s. If you have a 40 by 60, you're more likely to sell 3040s and 3045s. So if you have the space, go big. It's the best way to do it. Another thing that we mentioned just a second ago, if you haven't played with Studio for iPad, the iPad app, it is a fantastic tool.
Yeah.
It has the frames in there, it has the products in there. You can design wall groupings, especially if you don't have a studio space. And if you can get your client to send you a picture of their home, you can calibrate it, you can put the images on the wall, and as soon as people can visualize it, they want it.
Yeah,
that's just how it works. Yeah, exactly. So as far as getting these delivered to you for the holidays, of course, what did we talk about yesterday? You said the words of the day are plan ahead.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to plan ahead this year. This year is unlike any other as far as our supply chain and production and all those things. So if you are going to be delivering high-end wall display products to your clients for the holidays, we definitely want you to plan ahead on that this year. But when you do place those orders, you do have the option, if you want to just drop ship that directly to your client. It may save you some days at the end as we're approaching the holidays to not have to get it into your studio, repackage it, and then contact the client or deliver it. We drop ship straight from here, no White House branding, no invoice in the box, so there really isn't a way that they can ever trace it back to us. It looks like it came from you, which is a wonderful thing. They come out of the box ready to hang onto the wall. So it really is a great
especially
thing.
at this time of year, dropship's a really good plan.
Yep.
Would you suggest, I feel like most of the time sometimes throughout the year we talk about, like, if you're going to sell something for over $1,000, you might even suggest that they go in and hang it or bring it to them, right? Like, I feel like that's, but again, I think that's a different time of scenario of different type of year.
Yep. And depending on your level of service, you can never go wrong with over serving a client. I mean, you can't do too much. I tend to be known as an over communicator around here. Over serving your client, overdoing for them, it's a great thing. If you sell a wall grouping, they can be a little bit of a challenge to hang, to make sure that everything is exactly how you want it to be, especially multi-image groupings, to create a plan and to go in and to do that, install it for your client. That's phenomenal. That way it's not hanging crooked on the wall too. So, because I've seen that before. But anyway, float frames, one of our favorite products here. Definitely give them a try. If you have questions, contact customer service, set up a time. They're more than willing to help you out with that. Check out Studio. You can order float frames in Studio. In fact, that's going to be the way that you order your metal and your fine art paper and photo and all those things. It actually gives you a preview of what it's going to look like in the frame. And if you do like to proof to your clients, you do get a link and you can actually proof to them. It doesn't look like it's coming from us again, and they can say, yep, that's what I want. And you can hit order directly through Studio from your project. So anything else to add?
I think that's it. I think it was a good thing to add to order online at the WHGC.com for the float frames in that catalog.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And definitely, like I said before, subscribe to our YouTube page. We're doing a lot of this online education, talking about products, talking about selling, pricing, all those things. We have a big vault of information on there, and it's going to just continue to grow. Follow along at Instagram at WHCC Pro for all of the fun things that we're posting on our posts and in our stories. And then also, we have a shiny new website. It's beautiful at WHCC.com. Go ahead and check that out. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you